Hey folks, I'm Bex, welcome back to the Tiny Fibre Studio. So this was really my first proper week of Tour de Fleece, and I mentioned that I had a project planned that I wanted to work on, and I haven't done anything towards that at all. Instead, I decided to focus on spinning up the remaining down the allotment fibre that was left over from my workshop samples. These actually sold out during the open weekend, but they are making more, which I believe are due to be available on Friday the 21st of July 2023. So if you're interested, I would sign up for the John Arbon newsletter just to make sure that you don't miss them. So how did my week go? Well, on Tuesday, which was stage 10, I got started with one of the first tops, which was Nasturtium. That's this white, green and orange fibre. I did remember to set aside a few staple lengths of each colour to store with the workshop samples for future reference. I really wanted to spend some time working on my Luette S45 for this one. I'll do a proper video about this one at some point, but this is a really quirky little accelerated wheel, long since discontinued, with ratios that go from a relatively sedate 7.1 through to a pretty speedy 20:1. Last time I'd used it, I'd noticed that the take-up was a little bit inconsistent, so I'd get normal take-up for a while and then a burst of really strong take-up, which I'd narrowed down to being to do with rough spots on the groove of the bobbin, so the break band was catching there, but I hadn't had time to fix it, so I thought that spinning a 3-ply on it would give me the chance to go through all of the bobbins and just sand those rough spots down. I spun 3 singles of the Nasturtium colourway on there, from the fold, short backward draw, and then I rewound them onto shack bobbins using the matchless in Irish tension, just to maximise the consistency and also tidy up the bobbins. And those got a chance to rest overnight, and then on Wednesday, which was stage 11, I plied the Nasturtium up. When I was learning to spin, I kept reading that a skein should hang straight when it's fresh off the niddy noddy, and I still see this information floating around, and as you can see, this one didn't. I don't believe what the skein is telling me at this point, and this is why. This skein is twisting with Z twist, which means that it wants more twist in the same direction. Z twist is clockwise, and that would suggest that it's been over-plied, but I never judge anything about a skein until it's finished, and that's because the entire character of the yarn can change after it's had a bath and dried out. For a start, there is dormant clockwise twist in the singles that's going to come back when it's finished, and that's because it was rested for a while. These 2 photos show the same ply back sample of a different yarn, and this was a well-rested singles which had been on my bobbin for quite a few months. In the first ply back, you can see that there's hardly any twist in there at all, but after a quick soak, all of that dormant twist came back. In general, I just soak my skeins in tap hot water until I remember to next check it, which is usually when the water's gone cold. Then I squish the excess water out gently, spin it in a salad spinner to get rid of as much water as I can, snap it a couple of times, and then just leave it hanging up to dry. I don't normally thwack my yarns unless it's a woolen spun or I want it to have a bit of a halo, and I never ever weight my yarn because I don't want it to lie to me and tell me that it's balanced if it's not. And sure enough, after finishing, the skein of Nasturtium hangs completely straight. If it was still twisting one way or the other at this point, then I would run it back through the wheel and correct that, but as you can see, it's totally fine. The resulting skein is 37 grams, 1.3 ounces, and about 120 metres, about 130-ish yards. And it's about 1,600 yards per pound, so roughly a sport weight. It's probably going to end up being a pair of fingerless mitts, maybe? Thursday was stage 12, and I had a few bits of admin to do in the morning, and then I spun 1 single of Beehive onto the Shack Sidekick. I did this one short forward draw from the fold, just to look at the differences between short forward and short backwards. I think I mentioned in my workshop that I feel as though I'm more consistent spinning short backward draw than short forward. I think short backward draw might have a little bit of a sort of self-regulating property to it, maybe. Anyway, while I was spinning this, I was thinking about a question that someone had asked in the workshop that I didn't immediately have a great answer to. And that was whether I had any advice for spinners with arthritis or other joint pain in their hands who wanted to spin from the fold. Now, that's not something that I have direct experience of, so any help that I can provide is purely theoretical, but I really wanted to try and figure something out with this. The problem with spinning from the fold is that you're either holding your fibre like this or just fold it over and like this, obviously without this bit attached. And that can obviously kind of cramp your hand up, and I can imagine that that's pretty horrific if you have any kind of joint pain. But I had an idea and I gave it a try while I was spinning this up, and it worked. I just used a hair clip to hold the fibre in place. It has to be the right kind of hair clip, one where the teeth of the clip don't leave too much of a gap between them, otherwise it won't grip the fibre. But if you can find the right kind of clip, I think this is a workable solution. And because it's from the fold, you could also spin long draw from it if the short draws don't work well for you. I'll make a separate video about this at some point, but I need to try and find a reliable source of that type of clip before I put it out there. But I just thought you might like to see it here as well. On Friday, which was stage 13, I decided to finally release the books video that I'd had sitting almost finished on the hard drive for a while. I had some company because Dexter was watching me edit, but what I didn't realise at the time was that he was slow blinking the on-screen version of me, which was super cute. If you're not a cat person, a slow blink is like a cat's version of a smile because it means they trust you enough to let their guard down a little bit. Anyway, editing ended up taking up far more of my day than I'd bargained for, and after I'd uploaded and done all of the necessary stuff like descriptions, thumbnails and manual subtitle corrections and made it live, I noticed a mistake in it and I had to pull it down, fix the problem and re-upload it all over again. So consequently, by the time I got the sidekick out, I was shattered and I only managed to spin maybe 2 or 3 staple lengths of Beehive. But stage 14, my productivity was much better. On Saturday, I finished off the Beehive singles, rewound them back onto the sidekick and rested them overnight, ready for plying on stage 15. The Beehive skein is 33 grams, about 1.1 ounces, 126 metres, about 138 yards, and just over 1900 yards per pound. So this one's a bit more in the fingering weight category. So I think I might need to stripe this with another colour, maybe for a hat or something. So that's my spinning progress this week. I'll get to some knitting progress in just a second, but I'd love to know how your Tour de Fleece is going. So feel free to drop a little progress update in the comments. Alongside the spinning, I've also been working on a sweater that's been on the needles for a little while. Right before I started prepping for my workshop, I'd done the first sleeve cap. So this week I've been working my way down this first sleeve. So this is the Ravelston sweater by Ysolda Teague. It's a pretty simple looking V-neck, or there is a scoop neck version, with some nice little details like asymmetrical sleeve caps and an optional folded hem. I tried on the sample at Edinburgh Yarn Festival in 2019. And it just fitted perfectly, which is often the case with Ysolda's sweater samples, although the sleeves on this one were a little bit too long. I've been doing it in exactly the same grey, and just for a little bit of fun, the hem, which is a folded hem, has a little bit of yellow on the inside, which is Blackie Yarn's Tamar 4-ply in Camel. That's the colourway. So yeah, that's all my progress this week. Have another great week of spinning and I will see you again next time.